everybody, and welcome back for another video. My channel is Holy Grail Sports Cards, and today we have a really interesting topic. We're talking about Patrick Mahomes prices, and we're going to be focusing on sort of a analysis of two of his key rookie cards, his 2017 Prizm and his 2017 Optic. We're going to be evaluating sort of what the current state of the market of those two cards are. We're going to be analyzing some pop reports from PSA, and I'm going to be giving you some of my opinions on the general eye appeal of each card, and which card I would choose at each price. So let's get into it. I'm going to flip the camera around, and I'm going to be on my computer showing you some of the things that I'm seeing. All right.
All right, everybody, and we are back. So we're going to get started, and when I refer to the Prizm, I'm referring to this card right here. And when I refer to the Optic, I'm referring to the base card and the holo that have this design right here. So let's get right into it. We're at the PSA Pop Report tool, and we're looking at 2017 Prizm first. So as we can see, the base card is not at the top. That's because 2017 didn't, really have a separation between the base and the silver. 2017 Prizm, this was an interesting set because only veterans had a separation between base and silver. Rookies just had what's called Prizm. I think they all sort of look like silvers though, so they just call them Prizm. So that's card number 269. And we can see that there's 2,241 total graded copies so far at PSA, and 780 of those are PSA 10s, and 1,088 are PSA 9s, and 310 are PSA 8s. Two things that stand out to me right off the bat are that 780 out of 2,200. That's a very low gem rate. That's a very low PSA 10 rate because technically 9s and 10s are both gems, but that's a very, very low PSA 10 rate. It's less than 35% of cards that get PSA 10s. For a modern day card, I would say that's really low. So then we move on and we see that the PSA 9s, 1,088 out of 2,241, makes up about 48% of the population. So total, combined, the 9s and the 10s, they make up about 83% of the population. That's pretty shocking actually, because that means that 1.7 or almost 2 in 10 cards that are submitted are not even going to get a PSA 9 or a 10. So that's why we see such a large number of PSA 8s and pretty significant amount of 7s when you look at other modern day cards. So a couple hundred PSA 8s, that means these 8s could be considered 9s in the future when all is said and done. When these 10s are just so rare and locked up in collections. I could totally see PSA 8s in this set becoming sort of widely regarded as higher, considered higher than a PSA 8 when it comes down to it. So next up, we're going to take a look at the population of the Optic. And Optic did have the separation between base and holo. So we can see that base has 2,200, very similar to the total amount of the Prizm. And out of that, 1,675 are 10s, 508 are 9s, very small amount of 8s, and a couple of 7s and 6s. So that is a much higher gem rate, PSA 10 rate. 1675 out of 2222. That's over 75% are PSA 10s. So it was much easier to get a PSA 10 for the base, and we can see the same trend for the holo. 512 total graded, 398. That's 78% PSA 10 rate for the holo, and 103 PSA 9s. So we can definitely see that the holos are pretty darn rare so far. Not as many people submitted, or just the fact that there's less holos, out there. I would like to believe that there's just less Optic printed compared to Prizm. But the same amount of base compared to the Prizm. So now let's talk prices. So past couple of days, we're looking at the Prizm PSA 10. A couple of there's a buy it now for 3,100, an auction for 3,000, 2,900. These peaked last week at around 33, 3,500. There was a 3,750 sale, 3050 sale, 3,400, 3,000. So last week was definitely, I think, the peak of prices in the short term. People are just going nuts with those stimmy checks. But anyway, I definitely think prices are cooling off. We see prices dropping under 3,000, and right here, 2,900. I think people are just taking some of that heat off. They're they were in this card from when it was just a couple $100 or something, and taking profits. It's never a bad idea to take profits in this hobby, and because you don't know where the market's going to go. You don't know where all this new money was really coming from, or if it's going to be sustainable long term. So, especially if you have multiple copies of something, you're definitely taking off some of these cards and selling them, or selling this card and upgrading to something that you like even more. And your money can go very far away when you're selling one card for $3,000. So, all right, so that's the PSA 10, about 3,000 as of the last couple auctions. And then we see with the PSA 9, auctions have been in the 630, 620 range. It was 675, 645, so maybe 650. Last week there was a couple of sales, 720, 660, 700. So, this one is definitely cooled off as well, dropping to the low 600s. And we're going to talk about this in a little bit, but first let's just talk about the prices of each. So then the Optic PSA 10 Holo is the one we're going to be looking at first. PSA 10 Holos are going for about $2,400, $2,450. Last week I think there's a couple sales for So looks like the Optic Holo has actually held steady, if not increased in price, while the Prizm has sort of cooled off just a little bit. So part of that could just be there's a lot less Holos out there in the supply, so people are paying a little bit of a premium because maybe they're drying up, and there's just not as many sales. So then we're going to take a look at the Optic Base PSA 10. We're not going to be taking a look at the PSA 9s right now, but for the base PSA 10, we're seeing that 620 as well. 620, 625, 605. So we'll call it 620, which is exactly the same as the Prizm PSA 9. So we're seeing that the market is sort of valuing these Optic Base PSA 10s at the same as the Prizm PSA 9s. All right, and another significant thing that I'm noticing is that PSA 8s for the Prizm are going for a pretty decent amount, 525, and a couple sales over 500. Yeah, here's 500, May 6th. So we can see that PSA 8s are in pretty high demand too for the Prizm, and a lot of that could just be they are. That card was a really tough grade, and it was really hard to get. A PSA 9 wasn't even guaranteed, so people are seeing that the PSA 8 is a pretty should be regarded as almost like a PSA 9, I think. So now we're going to talk about sort of what my thoughts on these cards are, and if I had to choose one, which one would I choose? And my answer to that is I recently, past couple of months, I've been really advocating just for myself, for PSA 9s, especially for cards that are on the rare side, and and they're high in demand. So $620 for a PSA 9 compared to $3,000 for the PSA 10, I would make that trade any single day. I would definitely, right now, if I were picking up any card and I had to buy one today, I would definitely choose the PSA 9. I think it has a lot of room to grow on that PSA 10. I think, a $2,400 difference, that's a massive difference. And I just think that, over time, the as more and more of these PSA 10s get locked up in people's collections, PSA 9s are going to be the one that you see the most often, especially because of that 35% PSA 10 rate. That's really, really low. So I think PSA 9s are going to be more considered like a BGS 9.5. I think it's going to be considered almost all the way, the market standard for a tradable card. So I would be choosing the Prizm PSA 9. I think it has a lot of room to run. And for Optic, I would be looking at some of these red and yellow, PSA 9s, the lime or the pink or any of these variations. I like the red and yellow a lot because, the red goes with his red Chiefs jersey and stuff. And I always like parallels that sort of, have colors that match a little bit there. I think it's pretty sweet. So, but the Optic, I do love Optic, but for basketball and for football, but this particular one wouldn't be my first choice, and one of the reasons is just because he's not wearing a helmet. He's in a sort of staged environment, on a practice field, sort of looking up at the sky. He is about to throw a ball, and that's cool, but no helmet on, not in a real game time situation. I think over time, I think the Prizm is just going to be the more iconic card. I think, when you look at, LeBron Topps Chrome versus the Bowman, or, you look at all these iconic cards. You look at, Kobe Top, Kobe Top Chrome. Oh my God, I can't talk. Kobe Bryant Topps Chrome. And they're doing these. They're in action. They're doing something. They're in a real game time situation. Another card that comes to mind is a Tom Brady, Bowman Chrome. That was one of his first ones in a real uniform, in a real game, throwing a pass, and it ultimately became his most iconic card for the eye appeal of it. For that vintage sort of one iconic card to summarize this player's career. So I like the PSA 9. I like the fact that there's such a huge gap between the PSA 9 and the PSA 10. And for a player of Mahomes' caliber, he's in the same stratosphere as Luka and Trout and all those really hot guys right now. Luka, Trout, Zion. I think he's in the exact same category as them. As a superstar caliber player who's already proven that he's the future face of the league. With an MVP in his first year starting, record-setting performances, and with a Super Bowl win in his second season. I think people are going to look back and think, wow, 620 for one of his most iconic cards. And his team's going to be in playoff contention for years to come. They've got great management, and they've clearly been, shown that they can build around him. And I think he's going to be, the face of the NFL for the next 10 to 15 years, hopefully. So I think every single day there's going to be a high demand for a player of his caliber. And as he progresses throughout his career, I could definitely see these cards, have room for appreciation. So anyway, these are just some of my thoughts on Patrick Mahomes and on his prices and the market for the Prizm and the Optic currently. Obviously, there's so many other choices out there. Don't just think that there's Prizm and Optic. There's way more than that. There's some really beautiful, beautiful cards from many different sets from his rookie year and his second year. I know lots of people right now. They're priced out of his first year, so they're looking at his 2018, and there's some great, great options for 2018 as well. So, don't just think that you can only choose rookies. There's some really, for superstar players now, you can look at some of their second year cards, and you can definitely get a lot more value for your money. So, anyway, let me know what you guys think. Let me know which card you would choose in the, from these two cards, the Prizm or the Optic. Do you think I'm crazy to think that his prices, after a period of cooling off, they're going to continue rising, especially as the season returns to play? His prices have been skyrocketing with no football being played, so I'm just wondering what's going to happen when football returns, if people are going to come back to reality, or if people are going to go on another buying wave like they did the past couple of months. So let me know what you guys think. Thank you for watching, and if you like this video, give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing. This channel, we're going to be talking about weekly market trends. We're going to be talking about cards that you should be considering, cards that you should be buying from a collecting and investing standpoint. And we're going to be talking about all different things to educate you on the market and to talk about everything that's going on. So if you like that kind of content, we're going to be covering basketball, football, soccer, and potentially baseball in the future. If you want to learn more about any of these markets, consider subscribing, and I'll continue putting out videos. So thanks for watching, guys. I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.